This video is about why infinite combos are ruining your Commander games, and the reasons why they're doing that. To many, and maybe you, this could be a spicy take. So let's talk about it. I think I felt this way for a really long time, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And let me preface this by saying that as a long-time competitive player who really loves combos, I'm in no way a combo hater. But man, in Commander, most of the time they just really suck. This was made clear to me again recently when I left the safety of my normal playgroup and went out into the Commander wilds. I did this to do some testing for a video I was doing on the new Commander brackets. All of the games I played were in bracket 3, as most of my decks are definitely stronger than modern precons, but they value synergy and theme over pure power, so they aren't in bracket 4. We're talking Ur-Dragon, Merrin, and Eldrazi shenanigans. All reasonably strong stuff. And yet game after game after game was decided not by armies of creatures, commander damage, someone burning out the table, or something like crazy mill shenanigans, but by arbitrary infinite combos. Someone sits there durdling and hardly interacting with the game until they announce that they have assembled Exodia, and with the final combo piece, they try to win the game in a boring way that no one saw coming. I think many Commander players are just bad at proactively sharing how their decks plan to win. They'll say they're playing an Edgar Markov deck where they'll make lots of vampires and go wide, but somehow they failed to mention all the tutors and the Blood Bond combo. Or they'll say they're a Sidisi self-mill graveyard recursion deck, but then you see that Gravecrawler and Altar out, and you know what they really meant is milling and recurring that Gravecrawler specifically over and over again. In competitive formats, the meta is incredibly well defined, and you will be well aware of any possible viable combos and will know what the player is trying to do long before they attempt it. This is not the same in Commander. There are countless combos, most of which can come completely out of nowhere. And I don't know about you, but I play Commander for wacky plays and a fun social experience. And I can only have that fun group experience unceremoniously ended by an arbitrary combo so many times before it becomes very tiring. And I'd like to challenge you to think of the last time someone at the table got excited in a Commander game when an infinite loop was presented to them. To get ahead of the edgy comments I'll get, I'm not mad because a combo player won. I'm frustrated that there were seemingly 2 games of Commander happening here. One, honest game, with people wrestling for the win, and one where someone just blew up the ring out of nowhere. This Thassa's Oracle style experience isn't fun or interesting no matter how you slice it, and just because you've added in extra steps, it doesn't make the other combos any more cool. There's always this almost resigned, disappointed tone in the voice of the player after they announce, "Oh well, think I've got this one, guys," and there's just no fun or sense of achievement there. So why are we doing this? I think partly people just don't think enough. So let's take a step back from Gravecrawler and Thoracle and think through this. For something to have meaning, be it the meaning of your life or a Commander game, it comes from something being finite. Having too much of anything, be that food, money, sex, or time, makes it lose its meaning. If you know, you know. It's why so many rich people go off the rails. Having access to an infinite amount of anything immediately makes everything lose its meaning. In our Commander games, it's the tug of war between finite things that make it interesting. Managing our own resources like card advantage, removal, mana, and threats, as well as clashing with our opponent's finite resources, is what makes it fun. Infinites are obviously the opposite of this, and while thankfully when they arrive the game is almost over immediately, that end isn't a meaningful resolution to the tension in the game. And this is the reason why out of nowhere wins often feel so bad for most casual players. It's because the tension of the game isn't resolved. Tension and resolution of tension is an incredibly important thing. Anyone that's desperately needed the bathroom and held it in knows what I mean. This build-up and release of tension is why you like some of your favorite things, like songs and movies, and what happens at the end of making passionate love. It's also why you like Commander, even if you don't realize it. Speaking of passionate lovemaking, you should resolve some tension and make passionate love to the like and subscribe buttons. Commander is full of moments where tension is built up and resolved, and it's this tension and resolution that's created by politics, swing plays, and hijinks that are the memorable bit, not the moment that everyone starts picking up their cards. Wins are typically memorable if they're directly related to this hijinks, and things are at their best when there's a tug of war between winning and not winning. The problem is that these combo wins often completely bypass this tension system entirely, leaving the table completely unfulfilled. All tension, no resolution. Infinites are thus the worst way to win a game of Commander, because they prioritize winning over enjoyment. And that's a problem, because isn't fun why we play Commander and not Standard or Modern? And don't get me wrong, that competitive formats can be fun, but that's not the primary goal of the format, and the tension in those formats is always resolved by a win. Combos in competitive Magic are great, because games are short and the only goal is to win at all costs. This is completely at odds with Commander, where games are longer, with more tension, and where I would argue the primary goal is fun. If you disagree with that, CEDH exists and you should embrace it. For those of us in more casual pods though, which really means brackets 3 and maybe 4 in the new system, the main point I want to make is that I'd encourage you to cut the random infinite combos from your decks. This is at odds with what I've seen, which is people adding infinite combos to their deck to be able to compete. This ends up with most decks using similar win cons, and where your Squirrel deck wins the same way as your Landfall deck, which wins the same way as your Reanimator deck. I remember a time when I used to play in an online community that had admins approving deck lists to create a level playing field. I remember my favorite deck at the time, my Marin deck, was far too strong for lower power, but too weak for high power, so I wanted to play it in mid. The admins forced me to add 2-card infinites because mid power allowed for 2-card infinites, and that my deck wouldn't be able to keep up unless I had them. Games would always resolve at about turn 6 to 8 by an infinite combo. My deck was far too strong for low, but without trying to play these infinite combo lines, my deck just simply lacked the firepower for mid power. I ended up never playing my Marin deck, because all the strong fun cards couldn't be played at the lower power, but likewise, I didn't want to pile up my Marin deck as a Micaiah's Triskelion focus build because it bored me to tears. And the reason that I bring this up is that in my recent experiences, playing my Marin deck in bracket 3 has the exact same result. I can do really cool things by recycling Gary or Kakusho, but not at the speed or intensity as the 2-card combos on turn 6 to 8. So instead of falling into this infinite trap, I suggest running cards that increase the success of your primary win conditions that your deck is built around. That will result in games where your decks have more identity and your wins feel more meaningful, and you have more fun engaging games of Commander. If, however, you desperately want to combo, make your entire deck about that thing and communicate clearly that's what you're trying to do. In my Simon deck, which is probably the closest thing that I have to a combo deck, I announce at the start of the game that I'm likely going to try and win in a big flashy turn where I cast a ton of spells and draw my library. By doing that, you're creating tension with the table that will later be resolved when they either manage to stop you or fail to stop you from executing your game plan. And that's a far better outcome. But what do you think? Tell me in the comments, and thank you for watching.